Has anybody had any trouble sleeping in the last year or so? Yeah. Ruminating on things in the world may be troubling to you, perhaps, no? A few people, yes, okay. So I'm gonna preface this by saying what I'm sharing with you is what I tell myself to do. I'm not always doing it, I'm not always doing it well, but these are the bits of advice I give myself. If any of this doesn't feel like it fits for you, that's fine. Please feel free to just push it aside if it's not for you. But I wanted to, in this, let me start my little timer, in the next 45 minutes, to take my segment of this session and give you like the best advice I have for this moment in time. So we'll be going quickly, but you have an opportunity to have the slides sent to you. So don't feel like you have to take a lot of notes. And I tried to give you a thorough handout that will also be something good to take home with you. There's clipboards going around for you to put your email on, and we'll send you a PDF of the slides if you put your email address on that clipboard. There's 2 clipboards roaming around. All right. So the title here is Living Our Spiritual Principles in Turbulent or Uncertain Times. So this is certainly a time where it feels like maybe it's a bit chaotic. Does that feel maybe a bit chaotic? Uncertain, a lot of change happening. Things that we used to feel confident in, maybe we don't feel so confident in anymore, which is very like destabilizing in a way. So how do we get through this time? Well, the first thing I'd like to ask you to think about, which is question 1 on your worksheet, is what is your most important spiritual principle? Or if you prefer, what is your guiding question? Or if you prefer, what is your most important core value? So just take a second and maybe write an answer to that in the space provided, and then let's talk about that. Answers. Does anybody want to share their guiding question or core value? Yes?
It's not a guiding question, but it's more of a
Mantra.
I am right here with you.
I am right here with you. And who is the I am?
The I am is the internal divinity.
I am right here with you. My internal divinity is right here with me. Okay, lovely. Who wants to share? And I'll repeat for the microphone. Yes?
What would love do?
What would love do? Love that question. That's my favorite question too. Yes?
I'm on the path of the Holy Spirit.
I'm on the path of the Holy Spirit. Lovely. Yes, ma'am?
God is in charge.
God is in charge. Yes. How do I stay grounded, Dave? We're all in this together. May God use me, guide me, and work through me. Lovely. Okay, coming over here, Sheila. This is happening for me, not to me. That's a great one. I need to add that to my list. You know, I used to say that a lot, and then I forget things, you know? They fall off my brain cells, and now I got to put them back in. Yes. So in the worst of us, there's some good. In the best of us, there's some bad. Something good is going to come from this, right?
Live and love in the moment. That's all we have right now.
Live and love in the moment. That's all we have right now. So having a guiding question is really helpful to me in my life. It like snaps me back, and my guiding question is, what would love do? It doesn't have to be your guiding question, but having a guiding question or a guiding statement or a core value can be really helpful. We're also going to get to a second statement, which is your panic button reset statement. We'll get to that in a moment. Before we get to that, I want to introduce this concept of the circle of control, the circle of influence, and the circle of concern. So this is a derivative of the work of Stephen Covey, who just used 2 circles, control and concern, and I put the circle of influence in between. Because I think there are things we don't have full control over, but we can influence, and I like to think about that too. So what's in your circle of concern now? And you can just shout it out and I'll repeat it for the mic. What are you concerned about? Equity. Immigrants. Your granddaughter. What kind of future? What kind of present? What kind of future for your granddaughter? Both of those? Yes. I'm sorry? Havoc. Chaos. craziness. Yeah, all of that. So you're worried of sort of not doing this time right. Like you're gonna screw up spiritually and not, am I growing? Am I doing what I'm supposed to do? Does anyone have a perfectionist streak or a self-critic? You got a self-critic in there? Yeah, I've got a very nasty self-critic. My self-critic speaks to me in a way I would never speak to another human being. Isn't that awful? Yeah, but you know, that got programmed into me as a kid. Yeah, so having some self-compassion for that and talking to that wounded child can be an interior technique that's helpful. All right, let's take a few more concerns, yes. So how do I take care of other people? And people who are very spiritually minded are often feeling like it's my job to take care of everybody, and I don't know where to start or how to do it, right? Okay, let's just take a couple more. You're concerned about violence, right? Yes. You're concerned about the trans community. Yeah. Anybody got a, like, I'm going to be unhappy if I don't speak kind of sensation? Yes. You're feeling worried about insecurity for the whole society and for yourself? Okay. So, is it an irrational thing to be worried right now? No, I don't think so. But is it possible that as spiritually minded people, we then tell ourselves that we're of insufficient faith if we're worried? So do you find another reason to beat up on yourself because you're worried? I do. I don't know about you, but I go, you know, if I were really spiritually intelligent, you know, and I wrote this whole book on spiritual intelligence, so I'm like supposed to be spiritually intelligent, which, by the way, you can write about a topic without totally embodying the topic, right? But if I were spiritually intelligent, I wouldn't be so worried. I'd have faith in God that it's all good. And that's a pretty harsh self-judgment. And the fact that I'm worried about myself and others, I don't think is totally irrational. So how do we handle all this complexity? And there's going to be a polarity management tool we're going to get to very shortly that I hope will help. It helps me hold two things that seem to be opposite as simultaneously true. Okay? So we'll get there in a second. But let's talk about the circle of control, the circle of influence, and the circle of concern. If we were to have a brainstorming session, which we wouldn't have time for, to list every single concern we all have right now, it would probably take pages to list them all, right? So if your mind, heart, spirit, energy is all out here in the circle of concern, you might not be having an optimum impact in the world, right? Because there's a lot of stuff out here that you probably can't influence or control. What can you control? Me. And is that part easy? No. There's plenty of work to be done right here with self-management, self-control, and impacting with actions the things I feel called to do. So for each of us, I think there's not going to be the same answer. There's not one answer that the whole community can say, this is how we're going to deal with the times that we're facing. I think each of us has to look in our own hearts and say, given my time, my talents, my treasure, my intuition, what is mine to do? And where do I care for myself and where do I care for others? So we'll talk more about that. Things that don't fall here might fall in the circle of influence. Maybe you plus other people can be engaged in social justice things that you can't control, but you can influence. And again, discernment about what percentage of your time goes here, right? The real trick to this model is don't get trapped out here, right? And it can help to just list all your concerns, get them out of your mind and onto a piece of paper, and then say a prayer over that, because prayer works. We know prayer works, so pray over the whole circle of concern. But where you take action, maybe focus it more here and a little bit there. If you think about your energy in any given day as a bank account, where are you spending the bank account? And I would love to fix every problem in my area of concern. And I, of course, have the answer. You know, like, I know the right way to do all this stuff if people would just listen to me. But, you know, there's sort of this sense of humility, like maybe I don't know. And I certainly don't have the time, energy, money, whatever, to do infinite number of things. And I don't think I'm here to do an infinite number of things. So what is mine to do? My guiding question is, what would love do? Well, I love a lot of things and a lot of people and a lot of groups of people that are very scared right now. But what is mine that I can do? And so it might be that I can only pray for this and I can donate money for that, but I can actually take action on some other thing. So use this to help you sort through, are you over-focused in the circle of concern? And if you are, you're probably doing things like doom scrolling. You know that phrase? That just cracks me up, where you scroll social media all day long looking for evidence of the impending end of democracy, the impending end of, social justice, the impending end of whatever it is you're worried about. Are you doom scrolling, obsessively news watching, obsessively worrying, ruminating, not sleeping, overeating? I don't know about you, but I have lately noticed that I think all solutions exist in my pantry. And if I just keep looking, I will find the right snack to make me feel better, and it'll all be fine, So, what is your, when you stand back, hysterical habit? I mean, it's good to laugh at ourselves, right? What is your kind of thing that you're doing that's probably not healthy, and can you stop it? People have deleted apps from their phone because they're checking their social media too often, and you don't want to completely tune out. You want to pay attention to the world. So how do you pay attention to the world without getting lost in the world? I'll give you one tip I found recently, which is a newer news source, relatively new to me, called Ground News, Ground News. And if you follow Randy Rainbow at all, who's pretty hysterical, if you need a laugh, you can always go to Randy Rainbow. But he gets a discount of 40% off the subscription. So if you go to his channel, I think he shares, and it's probably just Ground News/Randy or something, groundnews.com. But what they do is they try to provide news from both sides and factuality measures. This is a high factuality story, and it's a blind spot for the left. This is a high factuality story, it's a blind spot for the right. So I try to stay informed in ways that don't inflame me, so that might be an option for you. And then there's all this everything else out here. Yes? Randy Rainbow, R-A-N-D-Y, Rainbow. Very talented guy, does these very sarcastic song videos. So you may find him amusing or you may find him insulting, not sure. I find him hysterical, so, whichever. All right, so the green area is where you want to focus the most of your energy, and the concern area the least. Not that you don't stay aware of the concerns, but you just don't want to get lost in the concerns. All right, so let's talk now about a reset question. If you are ruminating and ruminating and ruminating and you can't seem to get yourself out of worry, it can be good to have a wait a minute question or statement that you ask yourself. I have found it very helpful for me to go back to the Course in Miracles workbook recently. So I got an electronic version of it so I can have it with me all the time, and I just open a lesson and I remember that lesson and I say things that sort of summarize for me, like, I don't know what this means. That's sort of a summary statement for me. Or I don't know what this is for. Also, I think that one's a direct quote. The other one's kind of a summary quote. Or I'm never upset for the reason I think. Right? So does anybody have any other kind of knock yourself in the head, wait a minute, snap out of it kind of questions or statements that they ask? Yes?
You mentioned A Course in Miracles. It reminded me, there is a lesson 153, it says, in my defenselessness does my safety lie. Yeah. And just remembering that there are some things that I have absolutely no control over, and that I can and to let it go and pray for that which I can't control.
Right. Pray for what you can't control and surrender, release, let it go, versus clinging to it. Right? Yeah. Yes. What do you got?
I'm determined to see that this isn't real.
I'm determined to see that this isn't real. Now, those of you, we've got Course in Miracles experts here. The word real is used in a specific way in the Course in Miracles. And to put it in sort of common English, it's that's which eternal. That which is eternal is what is ultimately real. That which is this dualistic manifest physical form is, some people might say, an illusion, but other people might be insulted by that, because it doesn't feel like an illusion when you're suffering or someone you love is suffering. So it's kind of, how do we hold two truths simultaneously? This world has the experience of suffering, and I don't want to do a spiritual bypass on my own or somebody else's suffering and say, well, you know, just quit having your pain because it's an illusion. You know, no, the person's in pain, you know, so it's a challenge. How do you kind of hold both of those things to be simultaneously true? But the idea is to have a question, any statement that will help you reset. And so the Course in Miracles is my reset, because it means I'm too much in the world, I'm too much in the dualism, and I'm not enough in the eternal or the divine. So it's my way of kind of snapping myself back, if that makes sense. All right. You need a way to interrupt your negative thoughts and help you kind of get back on. So make a note of a reset question that might work for you. I don't know what this means, or I don't know what this is for, are my current two favorites. I can imagine that the chaos of this moment might be serving a divine purpose, and I can't see what it is. My perspective is limited, you know. So the other thing I remind myself of is the only way out is through, which is a pretty famous saying. So, you know, putting my head in the sand is not going to probably be helpful. All right, the next tool I love is polarity management. If you were here for the first of these 3 sessions that we've had, I did a deeper dive on polarity management. We're going to do a quick reminder today. Polarities are 2 seeming opposites that are simultaneously true. All right? This is one of those, it hurts your head initially, and then it's like, oh, this is the best tool I have ever found, you know? And I will tell you, the book And, written by Barry P. Johnson, this is his work that this is based on, is probably the single most important philosophical book I have encountered in my life, other than maybe The Course in Miracles. The name of the book is And, A-N-D. And there's A&D right here. And if you get the slides, it'll be there. Volume 1 is his book, and Volume 2 are the practitioners of his polarity mapping technique talking about how they've used it. But Barry is a man with a deep heart for social justice, and he talks about the polarities of the human experience, one of which is justice and mercy. How do we hold justice and mercy? You know, it's beautiful work. So if you're intrigued by this, there's a lot of free stuff on the internet around polarity mapping or polarity thinking. But if you really want to get into it, his newest book is called And. The illustration we use on polarity mapping is inhaling and exhaling. And if I were to ask you which one is better, you can only have one. Several of you are laughing. Why are you laughing? Because that would be very self-defeating, wouldn't it? If we said, I am in the church of inhaling, and I believe exhaling is of Satan, and I am not going to do it. I am only inhaling, and that is it. Well, what's the outcome of that going to be? I'm going to inhale and hold my breath until what happens? I faint or die. And most likely I would faint and my body would take over, because it would say, you are just way too dumb to be managing this process, so we're going to just knock you unconscious and take over. Right? So inhaling and exhaling are both essential. Here is how he maps this. He has this lovely map with an infinity loop in the middle, and you put the 2 words that are virtuous opposites on either side. So in the book And, justice and mercy would be a polarity that he would talk about. But here's the simple beginning. Is inhaling good? Yes, there are positives. If you stay on the inhaling side because you are morally opposed to exhaling, eventually you will experience the negative of that perspective. Then you'll be forced to exhale, releasing carbon dioxide. And if you stay there too long, the positive becomes a negative, and you're deprived of oxygen. Then you're forced to inhale and get the oxygen. So it is a never-ending infinity loop, which I think is a beautiful symbol. Now, there's a north pole or a green pole and a red pole. The green pole is what you get by managing this well, which is staying alive. The red pole is the negative you get by failing to manage this, which would be fainting or dying. All right. There are a great many of these polarities, and when you get more into it, you start drawing these really nice, simple maps, which can solve a lot of relationship problems. If you're having a fight with somebody all the time, there may be a polarity at play. If there are two political parties that can't get along, there are quite a few polarities at play, right? So it helps you to see that my perspective, whichever it is, has an upside and a downside. But if I'm in the inhale pole, I'm probably only going to notice the positive of my preference and the negative of your preference, right? I will be blind to the negative of my preference and to the positive of yours. And this sums up a lot of politics, yes? Virtuous opposites, meaning good and evil is not a polarity to manage. Does that make sense? Evil would be down here, good would be up here, but two things that are in dynamic tension cannot be separated are the virtuous opposites. So inhaling is virtuous and exhaling is virtuous. Justice is virtuous, mercy is virtuous, right? That's the idea. So once you start realizing, like, okay, I'm on the pole that's color-coded white here, and I'm only seeing the two white squares, but the person who is favoring the blue side here is only seeing the blue squares. Neither one of us has the whole map. So can I relax my worldview enough to include the whole map? Super, super helpful, because true polarities are unavoidable, unsolvable, and indestructible. As long as we're in this reality, we are dealing with polarities, and we'll never win and be done. Where inhaling is victorious forever, you know? It's like these.
When you say relax about worldview,
Relax my belief that I'm right about everything. Because of course I am, right? I'm right about everything. Yeah. So if I'm obsessively believing, and here's another one that's very common in spiritual communities, that I should take care of others, and I may see the virtue of taking care of others, and I may see the selfishness of people who focus on self-care, but I may be blind to my excessive over-caring of other people might actually be harming them, might be harming me, and I'm missing out on all the benefits of self-care. I find that deeply spiritual people are often trapped in the other care pole. Yes? Unavoidable, unsolvable, indestructible. So there's no solution to this except to keep moving. You have to keep moving in the infinity loop to include. And what that means to move with that infinity loop is that you feel when you've fallen below the line into the negative zone. So when I care for other people, what happens is I hope that other people feel loved and supported. This is a positive of other care. I hope that trust grows between us. I hope that we are stronger when we help each other. What I am blind to initially is that over-focusing on other care, I can become exhausted, short-tempered, I can get sick, I might even be harming the other person by creating codependencies, and eventually the relationship might rupture. So the goal, if it's healthy relationships, could be undermined by too much over-caring. So to notice when we fall below the line and come up here and take care of ourselves in appropriate ways, then I feel more energized, inspired, healthy, creative, able to get things done. Right? If I hang out here too long, I will start to get selfish, maybe get isolated, maybe get lonely, nobody wants to hang with me, I'll get angry, and I have relationship rupture. So the interesting thing is excessive use of either pole gets you the outcome that neither side wants. Yeah. We end up with damaged relationships, a damaged dysfunctional society, etc. We're very much caught in political polarities where we are slamming back and forth. When you slam back and forth without really integrating the map, you can get the negative of both sides. So one of the things that Barry Johnson talks about with this model, if you're slamming back and forth, too much of the other care, too much of the self-care, too much of the other care, too much of the self-care, what you get is what he calls the double down. You're not capturing the upside of either. So polarities has been one of my favorite tools for years. I totally love it. Another way I like to think about it is, what are people's hopes and what are their fears? What I hope for as a person who likes to care for others is all those things that were listed on the previous page up in this quadrant. What I fear is being selfish, or even perceived as selfish, right? What this person hopes for is to be energized and creative and effective because they're taking good care of themselves. What they fear is excessive other care, causing other people to become codependent, right? So a lot of Republican fears will show up here where social service programs are making people weak. That will be one of their fears, right? Our fear, if you're on this side, is we hope that nobody has unnecessary suffering, especially due to structural inequities, right? Everybody's partially right. That stinks, you know, because I prefer to be exclusively right. But that's not how it works. So doing this map helps you to navigate, okay, I've been over here too long taking care of other people, I'm getting tired, I'm maybe making people dependent on me, I'm getting sick, I need to go up here. So during this time, self-care is going to be really, really important. And it can even be considered a spiritual goal, appropriate self-care as a spiritual goal. All right, so I'm going to skip these slides because of time. And I'm going to move on, you'll have all of these, to spirituality framed as what is real, what is true, the relative world, and the non-dual. Now, the Course in Miracles is absolutely fantastic at helping us focus on the non-dual, the eternal, that which is spirit and true at the spirit level. The relative world is where there's a lot of suffering and pain. Which one do I want to focus on? Personally, me, both, right? I want to be in the world but not of the world. I want to be helpful and loving. My guiding question, what would love do? What would love do is relieve the hunger in front of me, relieve the suffering in front of me, if I can. And if I can't, I have to surrender to what I can't control and put my trust in the non-dual for things I can't control. And where I get obsessive and convinced that I have an interpretation that is doom and gloom and despair, then I need to remind myself I don't know what anything means and I don't know what this is for. And that's how I get myself back up here. Does that make sense? Right. So we want to do both, I feel, while we're in our bodies. Because if we focus too much on the non-dual, we can get disengaged and not help people who need help. And if we focus too much in the relative world, we feel hopeless. And neither one of those is a great place to be. Make sense? Yeah. It's inhaling and exhaling, and you learn to perceive when you've dropped below the line. I can tell when I'm in the pantry searching for all solutions among the chip files, you know, like which chips will solve my problems today, that I'm probably in my hopeless mindset, you know, and I'm looking for a solution that is not really a solution. And the solution is to reframe and put myself back into an eternal non-dual mindset. It's like rest and act. You know, you need to sleep, you need to rest. I need to rest in God. And after I rest in God, I can come back to what is mine to do. Yeah. Sure. We have to support each other, but I can't fix anybody else. Yeah. It's a hard reality for those of us who are control freaks to realize that. But and I need to understand that if I'm too much in the non-dual, I'm coming off as judgmental and detached to people who are suffering. So it's this, where am I? Am I breathing, inhaling and exhaling? Am I in both? Have I had days of despair? Yes. Can I resonate with your day of despair? Totally. Can I just listen? Yes. I can just listen. And I don't know about you, but I have found tremendous relief just in saying my feelings. okay, which will get us to where we need to go next. All right. So here's how I tie it all together. The greatest commandment has been my guiding sort of North Star since I was a kid. Love God, love my neighbor, love myself, right? How does that look on a polarity map? Loving others, loving myself, with the North Pole being, what would love do? How do I show up as love? How do I love God, the absolute, in the presence of a dualistic world? I do the best I can in this dualistic world while trying to stay grounded in the non-dual, stay grounded in God. Make sense? Okay, final teaching point. Multiple intelligences. So there are 4 intelligences that are really important, in my opinion, for a successful life. There's other intelligences out there, but I think the 4 we've all got to deal with are IQ, EQ, which is emotional intelligence, SQ, which is spiritual intelligence, and PQ, which is physical intelligence. And I've displayed these in different ways. I'm not going to give you a whole lot of detail about this except to say we can be well developed like in IQ and underdeveloped in other things. And in our culture, many people are overdeveloped in IQ and underdeveloped in other things. So how do we care for ourselves with all 4 intelligences? They all 4 matter. Physical intelligence in this display is at the bottom of the pyramid because to the degree you don't take care of your body, it undermines the rest of the pyramid. So if you're exhausted and hangry because you haven't eaten or you're not eating well, you're over-caffeinated, whatever it is, it can affect all the rest of your intelligences. So getting enough sleep, taking care of your body, learning new things, taking care of your emotions, and taking care of your spiritual life. So let me explain a little more about those, and you have a lot in your handout about these. So EQ, I use the Daniel Goleman, Richard Boyatzis model that I got taught back in the 1990s. They've updated it a bunch, so I'm way out of date, but I like this model, so I still use it because I think it's super helpful and it's not been disproven. It's just like they keep publishing new versions of it. So there are 3 really important skills which are bolded in yellow. The first is emotional self-awareness, which means I understand my emotion, I can name it, and I understand what triggered it. Empathy means I can understand your emotions. Either I am feeling it empathically through my mirror neurons and my intuition, or I can read your body language, I can understand the context, I can imagine why you're so sad right now, for example. Emotional self-control means I'm angry, but I'm not taking it out on you. I can identify that I'm angry, I can manage my anger, all right? And then you get all of these good things here, like being able to develop other people, handle conflict, be a good change catalyst, and so on. So how do I do that? The first and most important skill is naming your emotions. If you get out on the internet, there are lots of good lists out there. Some of them are really pretty with rainbow colors. This is one that's very simple. It's got 4 faces, smiley face, kind of a pensive, sad face, a silly, I don't know why that's a silly face or worried or nervous, but then they thought it was, and an angry face. You'll find others that are more like this. And the citations are on these, so when you get the slides, you can find them. And this is the feelings wheel, which is even more complex. I like this one personally because I like to get out to the outer ring, because when I can name things a little better, I can kind of get to the belief system that's under them. I'm telling myself a story about the situation that is making me depressed, you know, or whatever it is. And then I can start questioning the story and maybe balancing it with a non-dual perspective. I don't know what this is for. I'm never upset for the reason I think. All right. So in your handout, you have a list of these 4 intelligences and a laundry list of ideas that I just kind of dumped out there for you, of ways that you can work on those intelligences. This is, like I said, advice I give myself. So when I know I need to work on something, this is the kind of list I would turn to say what might help me. Yes? I want you to, when you have a chance, pick at least one thing out of the 4 categories on that list, or make one up for yourself for your sort of IQ workout, PQ workout. What are you noticing that you're not doing? What can you do to improve your overall self-care in each of these domains? I want to end on this note. This quotation is going around like crazy these days. This is a quotation from, or sourced roughly from, Ilya Prigogine, who is a Nobel Prize-winning chemist, but he also did a lot of work in quantum physics, which just explodes my brain. So we'll just say, I'm not going to try and explain all of this to you, but he has this quotation which feels appropriate for the time. When a complex system is far from equilibrium, small islands of coherence in a sea of chaos have the capacity to shift the entire system to a higher order. Yeah. This quotation is on the end of your handout. So the very last page of your handout has this quotation on it. We are in a time that feels chaotic. Chaotic times are magnificent opportunities to reform at a higher level. Yes, we can regress, but this may be exactly what we need to break through. And what will enable breakthrough is us. People like us holding the highest vibration we can, using our metaphysics like crazy. This is the time to double and triple down on our metaphysical principles and to form in this church an island of coherence, and maybe in your spirit group and in the choir and in each of these groups, people can act as amplifiers. So we need to not isolate and be depressed and alone, which is an easy thing to do if you're introverted and sad. And you're just like, I'm gonna tune out the whole world because it's just too much. But instead, engage constructively with people of like mind and hold the high watch, as we often say in Unity. Hold the high watch, pray like crazy, using both metaphysical principles and I don't mind petitionary prayer occasionally. Every now and then I just have a day where all I can get out is help. Help, help, help. And if that's all I got, that's what I'm saying. So, on a day when that's all I can do, some days and it is enough, I get answers. When I ask for help, I get answers. So the antidote to chaos and confusion is coherence. And I think we have a powerfully coherent community here, and we can be and will be an agent of manifesting love in the world at a time when it is desperately needed and actually potentially close to breaking through. So that is my thought.
Cindy, we are so blessed to have you as a part of this community. Truly, truly.